So in this week's Fearful Symmetry Friday, it's a little bit late because of the holiday, and I'm quite drained from all of the activities of Thanksgiving. This is coming from a person who used to go shopping at midnight to avoid crowds and go to the gym at 4:30 in the morning, even though I'm not a morning person. So yeah, Thanksgiving is horrible. So this week's Fearful Symmetry Friday I'm going to focus on fire and hell, and we're going to touch a little bit on Milton, Paradise Lost, and a little bit about Cain and Abel. And it's about three and a half pages that I'm going to read from Northrop Frye's Fearful Symmetry, and so I will begin. And as the risen body perceives the new world, the old one perishes in flames. Why flames? Because fire is the greatest possible combination in this world of heat and light, and the risen body lives in the greatest possible combination of the spiritual forms of heat and light, energy or desire, and reason or vision. Fire destroys the solid form of nature, and those who have believed nature to be solid will find themselves in a lake of fire at the Dies Irae. But the imagination cannot be consumed by fire, for it is fire, the burning bush of God which never exhausts its material. It is this fire that, quote, delights in its form. The word consummation, often applied to the apocalypse, refers both to the burning world and the sacred marriage. Paradise itself is a place of flaming fire, the fires being the lustful passions which there are fully gratified. They are also, quote, thought-creating fires, because gratified desire produces reason. Eden is a fiery city, as is indicated in Ezekiel's speech to the covering cherub, quote, "Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of God. Thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire," end quote. Similarly, the three whom Nebuchadnezzar put into a fiery furnace were seen to be walking unhurt in the fire with the Son of God. Since the fall, there has been a flaming sword over paradise, and fire is now something to be approached with more circumspection. Orthodox theology tells us that in the eternal world the fires of hell have heat without light, and that heaven is a blaze of golden light, the question of heat being slurred over. Remembering that passion and desire are spiritual heat, such doctrines tell us symbolically that desires are hellish and that we shall be tortured forever for having them, whereas those who have emasculated their passions will be admitted to a heaven in which the kind of divine love they enjoy, while its exact nature is unknown, is certain to be something very, very pure. Like forest animals, the Orthodox have a fascinated horror of fire and its torments, and when we come down to the skeptical obscurantism of the, quote, new philosophy, quote, the element of fire is quite put out. What is coming is the union of heat and light, a marriage of heaven and hell. By hell, Blake means an upsurge of desire and passion within the rising body so great that it will destroy the present starry heaven, and he calls it hell because that is what the Orthodox call it. Here Blake's meaning has been misunderstood and deserves more explanation. Everything that furthers and increases the creative life is really good. The growth of creative energy is the tree of life, which enables men to attain an eternal existence. Whatever is pleasing to society, whatever is cautious, prudent, and undistinguished, or else vicious and cruel if society happens to be feeling that way, is morally good. The growth of morality is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which leads to death. The former is the gospel, the latter the law, under which all non-Christians and most of the nominal Christians live. Michael explains to Adam in Paradise Lost that it is the business of the law to discover sin rather than remove it. Moral good and moral evil do not represent any genuine opposition. The one wages wars and executes criminals, the other murders. The one exploits labor, the other robs. The one establishes marriage on the destruction of virginity, the other rapes. But they have a common enemy, the power of genius and prophecy. In terms of moral good, it is not the murderer or the robber, but the prophet who is really evil. Barabbas may be safely released, for it is impossible that his robberies can destroy the social structure of Pilate and Caiaphas. But there is a deadly danger in Jesus and John the Baptist, who must be got rid of at all costs. That is why no one can be saved by moral virtue. But it does not follow that Barabbas is in a higher imaginative state than Caiaphas. This takes us back by another road to our distinction of contrary and negation. The criminal is not the contrary, but the negation of the morally good man. He breaks the law, but he has no gospel. And though the prophet is regarded by society as a devil or a messenger from hell, he never practices the vice of, quote, hindering another. There is much that is really good in moral good. The prophet is concerned only to disentangle it from the easy virtue of moral cowardice. The marriage of heaven and hell, therefore, has nothing to do with the simple inversion of moral good and evil, which is known as sadism, and which forms an important aspect of romantic culture. And I'll just add a side note here. The marriage in heaven and hell here is a reference to Blake's work by that name. This is a traditional error in the interpretation of Blake, and one which ignores the fact that Blake attaches two meanings to the word hell, one real and the other ironic. There is a real hell in the human mind, and it achieves the physical form of dungeons, whips, racks, and all the miserable panoply of fear. Such a hell consolidates a moral virtue founded on terror with a moral evil founded on cruelty, and it exists because it is believed to be a part of necessity. The more degenerate the society, the more obvious this alliance of moral good and evil against the power of genius becomes. Those who know better can see that, as evil is a negation, this hell would be, in the spiritual world, nothingness, a monstrous multiple of zero. No one could go on living in it after the Last Judgment, because no one can exist in a state of non-existence, the post-apocalyptic hell of unending torment being, like the fallen sun, quote, a fantasy of evil man. Whatever foreshadows the Last Judgment thus foreshadows the annihilation of hell, and of the believers in it who are negations, quote, the elect from before the foundation of the world, and can have no existence after those foundations have disappeared. Hence, for these elect, anything which makes persecution and oppression seem less, quote, necessary, that is, any blow struck for human freedom, is their hell, and the announcement of a new hope, a new courage, a new faith, and a new vision is to them, quote, the voice of the devil. The darkness does not comprehend the light. Evil spirits fade on the crowing of the cock, and from their point of view it is the cock that is the evil spirit, the herald of the light which afflicts them with the, quote, frantic pain of the spirit in the mad song. And here I'm going to just skip a lengthy paragraph and get to this. The ghost of Abel makes the point that murder cannot be part of genius, but is always part of morality, and that genius must break with virtue and vice alike. It is, quote, bad to commit a murder, granted, but it does not thereby become, quote, good to murder the murderer. Thus is the monotonous pendulum of revenge which goes on ticking all through history. Abel worshipped a, quote, good God who wanted sheep murdered. Cain, in killing him, was sacrificing to a, quote, bad God who wanted human beings murdered. But both were the same God, and that God, Satan, who makes all his virtue out of necessity. Both Cain's murderousness and Abel's desire for revenge encourage this Satan to proclaim, in a parody of the biblical account, that human blood is more acceptable to him than the blood of animals. The true God descends at once and sets a mark on Cain to prevent the meaningless counteraction of bad crime and good punishment from going any further. So that's where I'm going to end this reading from Northrop Frye's Fearful Symmetry. There's a lot in there to think about, and if you like this sort of thing, give the video a like and subscribe. Thank you.